Hello and welcome to this video about the new improvements in Safran Risk Manager for version 23.1. I'm going to take you through the key differences and changes which have occurred since the last version was released. Starting on the landing page, we can now hide and show a user's login. So if they need to be able to see their password, they can now show or hide their password. And whilst talking about passwords, we've now also improved the characteristics of the password so that you can now have stronger password authentication aligned to your organization's requirement. In addition to password strength, we've also increased or made the ability to change the timeout of the tool so that you can set that at the administration page for logging people out of the tool if they have been inactive for a certain amount of time. Now, on first logging into the Safran Risk Manager, one of the key things you'll notice is the user interface has now adopted the tab layout, and the tabs are applicable to both the projects, also in my risks and my actions. And you'll see here the tabs are appearing up here, and also in the risk register. Now the way these tabs work is you can select either to open a tab or add a tab. So if I select the tick box, it'll add a tab to the top of the workbook, or if I select the name of the risk, it'll open it as the tab, so the risk becomes opened. And this enables users to be able to switch between different risks. Okay, and that gives you an advantage, for example, of being able to copy and paste from one tab into another without having to sort of open and close the different risks. So that's very much more an improvement on how we had it previously. Now, with the tabs, there's a new X tab here which allows you to close all of the tabs. So if you've got a number of tabs open at one time, you can close them all simultaneously. For the project tabs, these will be disabled until a project has been selected. So if I select a project now, if I select this project group here, but by using the edit key, you'll see that these tabs now become active, and I can move through and progress individual tabs. Now, while we're on the project page, it's worth noting that there have been some changes to the layout of the project data, and this includes breaking out of the metadata and the access control. So we now have access control on a separate tab, and this is how you would add your new users. Also, under the assess, we've made changes to the background way in which we can run absolute scoring methods. So rather than having an absolute score used as a percentage, we can now create a risk scoring matrix which uses manually entered absolute thresholds. So that changes the layout on the size page. In addition, on the score page, when selecting a risk score level, we now have the option to actually see what that looks like before you actually engage with it. So if I wanted to change the different levels, I could do so, and you can see now how those changes of those scores actually make a difference in the qualitative and also quantitative impacts. Also new on this version of the tool is the history page. Now the history page gives us a auditable trail of all the changes which have been made to the project, and that also enables us to see specifically what's changed overall, but also changes directly to the deliverables or the phases or any of the KDEX which might have changed. And then finally, the import has been updated to enable us to have a customizable fields, and I'll talk a little bit more about customizable fields when we come to the project level, but it enables us to actually import data associated with additional fields which you may have on your risk registers that you wish to import. Something I jumped over, which is the configuration. So configuration now enables the project to have its defaults set. So as and when you come to create a new risk, you can set defaults so that you don't have to be typing in specific data for every point. So it's possible for you to select both on or off switches for any of the checkboxes, and also change the names of the risk owners or the functions or the deliverables. So that should make life easier for creating new risks. In addition, under this analysis tab, we can now modify the Monte Carlo analysis model, and this enables you to do such things as changing the p-value, the number of iterations that will be run on the model, and also the seed. And we've also introduced the ability to use the Latin hypercube methodology for when running your samples. So that's the project page. I'm now going to move on to the individual risk register. So the risk register has been updated to help the users to see better the data which is contained within their registers. Now, what do I mean by that? Previously, we were unable to sort or change the columns or set predetermined views, whereas now what we can do is we can change and create different views of the risk register by simply creating a new view. So if I reset it back to the default, this will be what we would traditionally have seen on the risk register, all of the lines of columns of data. We can now create a new view by simply either selecting all of the columns of data or none of the columns of data, and then individually adding or removing those columns of data. And in addition to this, we can also rearrange the order in which those columns of data are presented, such that it's possible for you to create your own bespoke view of what the risk data looks like. You'd give that view a name. So if I just call it name and I save it. Now when I come to my select view, you'll see that name has appeared here. And if I select that name now, that will be pinned and will become the default view of the register the next time I open it. Now as you can see here, I've got myself a bow tie view, and this bow tie view is the one that I use most frequently. And this bow tie view enables me to see, for example, the sources, the events and the impacts in a simple layout. Should I wish to make a change to that particular view, then I can select the edit on it, and that enables me to now make changes to the view layout simply the same way I did when creating the view. So I can rearrange the column types and I can hide or show those columns. Additional in the risk register is the ability now to show multiple projects. So if I wish to show more than one project within the same register, I would simply select the multiple project from the projects list. So I can now create an entire division's worth of projects within my register. And when that's brought all those risks in, you'll be able to see that I would have the ability to now sort and search across those multiple project risks. Determining which is the most significant risk across all of my project group, for example, looking at my pre-score. So I can sort my pre-score. So I now see that these are the top risks. Okay, and you can see that these are against the different project names. Now, as we previously mentioned in the tabs, we can add a tab to be viewed, or we can open the risk tab. So we can select it and open it. In exactly the same way that I showed you previously, you can close the multi-tabs using the X tab there. Now, you'll notice that there's a permanent tab at the top here, which is the new risk. What the new risk enables us to do is to create new risks, much the same way as we did previously, only it remains within the risk register rather than opening it from the separate navigation pane down the left-hand side. Within the new risk, we've added one additional feature, and that is the ability to create multiple sources. So I can now create source 1, and I would assess that, and I would hit the add button, and now I can create source 2. So this now enables us to fully build up that bow tie representation of the risk, both from the sources and also the impact. And one other thing from the impact, rather than just giving it the title of cost or time, we now have the ability to give it its actual title. So with this, we could be the actual name of the impact. We would again tag it, and assess it and then add it. So this now gives us that full ability to create the bow tie analysis. Okay, if I come back to my register now, a couple of other points to be raised on the register. As previously, making changes to the register doesn't automatically update the page, simply because if we make multiple changes, it could take some time to keep refreshing one page after the other page. So rather than refreshing the page automatically, we have the refresh page held at the top of the tabs, and that enables us to then refresh that page. Okay, so that's the risk register. When I look at a tab now, I want to open a tab. So if I enter one of my risks, when I look at the tab, one of the new additions to the risk identification process is this custom fields, which I've mentioned previously. Now, custom fields are controlled by administration and enable you to add different types of data to your risk register. So in this particular example, I've included a checkbox, which is escalate to the program, and I've also included a free-form text box, which enables me to collect information, which includes rich text, which may well be a hyperlink to an external document. But the different types of fields which we can add include date formats, single text boxes, as well as these existing Boolean or the free-form text. Additionally, we've introduced treatment strategy. So treatment strategy was requested by many of our customers. This gives us an overarching treatment strategy which can be then applied to the individual risk. And in here we collect data about the description of the strategy, the treatment type, when its planned end date is, when its actual end date was, the ownership, and also, should it not work, the fallback strategy. Okay, one additional thing to add to the risk register, and that is, if I can just find a piece of data which has got one populated, we have now introduced the ability to identify individually which function is impacted should the risk event occur. So we now have function impacted per individual impact. Okay, I'd like to now show you the audit trail which we've introduced for individual risks. So each individual risk has now got a history field, and the history field will contain the audit trail for all the changes which are made, and we can break that down via the source or the consequence or the action that's been taken. So that history field now enables that auditability through individual risks, as well as the auditability which we have across the project. Okay, moving on to the dashboard. The dashboard, in a similar vein, has also had the tabs introduced to it, so that you can now select a risk from your heat map and it will open it as a new tab. So that saves again moving away from the dashboard when looking at individual risk data. Additionally, we've made the selection of multi-projects easier. So we now have a single click to make the dashboard multi-project. And finally, we've understand that some people do not want to see certain aspects on their dashboard, whether it be any one of the widgets, the qualitatives or the quantitatives. So we now have the ability to change the dashboard settings, and we simply switch on or off the widget which is presented in the dashboard. And so that will now show you a different view of the dashboard when you next open it up, and that becomes a permanent feature for your particular setting when you come to open your dashboard. Finally, I'd like to show you now the administration changes that we've made. So the administration changes include the way that we've laid out the information, such that we have again used the tab approach, so we have much more concise information presented per section. You'll also notice that the edit has been also updated with a delete. So many of our customers had asked for the ability to remove system attributes if they were no longer required, and so the use of the delete function now enables you to remove those system attributes. Previously mentioned the idea that we can now have absolute scoring methods. Now, when creating your risk matrix, it's now possible for you to create the scoring method by using absolute. So when creating the matrix, you would simply select use absolute values as yes. And then when you come to make those absolute impact evaluations, you can manually enter in the thresholds associated with those cost or time values associated with the matrix cells on your matrix. So that should make life a lot easier for people trying to use absolute scoring methods. The final thing I wish to show you is how we've updated the tool for internationalization. We now have the ability to switch languages. So the tool will ship with a number of default languages, and it's possible for you to simply select the different language, and when you press save, all of the words that are presented within the document will be switched to that new language. We also have the ability to change the date format such that if you're using a European or American date format, you now have the option to make those changes. As previously mentioned, you can update the password characteristics and also the timeout. I'm just going to switch this back to English so I can read it. Okay. And then additionally, if there's any words which your organization wishes to use, which are not the same words as which we've created here, then it's possible for you to independently change each of those specific words. So for example, if I didn't want to call it organization level, but I wanted just to call it organization, then I would simply edit it and make the changes within the field. So that now enables you to very much specifically customize the words to your organization's requirement. Then finally, we've also enabled the users to be able to manage their own FAQs, or frequently asked questions. Again, you can either edit the ones which are existing, or you can create yourself a new frequently asked question. So that's the end of the demonstration. I hope that that's shown you some of the key changes which have been introduced in Safran version 23.1. And I look forward to working with you in the future and helping you get to grips with this new version. Thank you very much.